All right, we're here. Anton Stetner podcast number 60. I feel like this is a very significant date or maybe time in history in terms of rates. So I'm excited to talk about that today. We always talk about rates, but I think what's happening right now, maybe the most significant since rates were raised from those low, threes up to where we're at right now.
We've hit one of those like pivotal moments where you go, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? What's the next shoe that's going to drop? And we're going to go through quite a few things here today because you're going, wait, rates are going higher. We have possible stagflation. Oh my goodness, how is the market responding to this? And can the Fed lower rates, or when could they do it? And you go, wow. As you and I were thinking about this morning and I was doing the research, I'm sitting there like, okay, well, what about this? What about this? And so the level of possibilities for this discussion today was, quite honestly, it was staggering. So where did you want to start?
Well, I guess the first question is, and I'll give a little bit of context. Rates have been high for a while.
Yep.
For mortgages, I want to say about a year and a half now,
Yeah.
right? Really high.
Yeah.
Almost astronomical when you consider the prices of homes. But rates are rising again. So why are they rising, and what does it mean for home buyers and investors?
Yeah. So right now rates are rising again because essentially no one believed the Fed when the Fed said, hey, by the way, everyone, we need you to listen up. Higher for longer. We're going to be data dependent. And the market at the beginning of 2024 actually had like a bit of euphoria in it. So rates were in the low sixes. And the market was believing that the Fed was going to have 7 rate cuts. That's what was being priced in. And that we would just magically, stomp out inflation, and then we could cut rates and go right back to normal. Fast forward, we're first quarter's over. We're now in April, and inflation is burning hotter than expected. It's proven stickier. The jobs market is stronger. So the Fed, even though we don't want people to lose their jobs, they do need the unemployment rate to come up in order for them to fight inflation. So all of a sudden, there's now a conflict between Wall Street and their expectations and the Federal Reserve. And that expectation was, oh my goodness, Wall Street was thinking 7 rate cuts. Now Wall Street's down to, hey, we're going to have 1.5 rate cuts. As that's happened, the stock market then, that's its reaction. It causes bonds to rise. And as bonds rise, rates have done nothing but, get worse. And then, of course, over this last weekend, we also had more conflict in the Middle East between Iran and Israel. So as you're a buyer sitting here looking at this, or you're an investor sitting here looking at this, what I figured we would do today, or how we would try to help people the most, is let's talk about like how you can use the direction of rates, and then how to interpret the direction of rates, and look under the hood a little bit. So traditionally speaking, if you just go get the 10-year Treasury, and you take that 10-year Treasury and you add on, 170 to 180 basis points, that was traditionally your 30-year fixed debt. As the economy started, not improving and getting worse, these banks had to start getting more margin. And so that basis point that was required hit as high as 300 basis points. And today it's about 275. 100 basis points can be thought of as basically a 1% interest rate. So when I looked this morning, the 10-year Treasury was 4.708. If we go and add the natural spread to it, that's happening today, that's 2.75, which gives us a mortgage rate today of 7.45. Rates when I looked last night were 7.39, and of course they rose this morning, so they will probably be 7.45 to 7.5 sometime later today. That's how you use this data. Go look at the 10-year Treasury Add in, 275 basis points and realize traditionally it's about 180, and that's where your 30-year debt is going to be sitting. As an investor or a buyer, what I want you to then do is do like you did with that screenshot. I want you to look at the trajectory over the last 30 days, 60 or 90 days, and going, is the 10-year trending up, trending down, or trending sideways? That tells you if I should lock the rate, if I should wait and bet, or our rate's going to get really, really bad. So it also helps you then with negotiating. If you know rates are trending in an upward direction, are more buyers going to qualify or are less buyers going to qualify?
Less buyers.
So if that 10 years trending in an upward direction, realize it's pinching people, because when mortgage rates get higher, less buyers qualify, less investors can afford it based on cash flow. The other thing that you should be looking for when rates have a spike like they've had in the last 30 days, and everyone laughs about this one, you should always be going and looking at the pending deals. If there's a pending deal that you like and rates spike, you need to go make a backup offer to see if you can swoop in and pick that one up as a backup buyer in a backup position. Because as rates spike like they've done over the last 30 days, and of course they did this morning because of this news, is that kills off some investors and some buyers that barely qualify. So there's opportunity for you right there in the pending transactions. Now, as always, if you guys want us to explain this to you more and show you how you can take specific advantage of it for it in our market, our phone number is right in the comments, or you can hit us at resg.com. But Benji, as you're looking at this, when you see the 10-year treasury earlier this year, what did you see? Because I think you, even more than myself, point out to me what direction you felt it was going.
Well, it definitely looks like it's going up. I think what's more important than how it's going up in a 10-year sense, because I look at it like 1 year back, 5 year back, 10 years back, is right now the Fed is so data dependent and they're just so sensitive to what the reports are, right?
Yes.
Whether it's a CPI or we're going to talk about GDP or the number of, the percentage of unemployment. It's really like, what's the trend in the last 3 to 6 months?
Bingo.
That's really important. And so as I see the rates going up in the last, I think the last few weeks, but the inflation numbers ticking up now, 3 reports in a row, that to me is significant, because even a downtick doesn't mean, we green light to lower these rates, because not only are they data dependent, it's also like trend influenced. So say we had one down and the second one's down and third one, then they might make a decision. But what's scary is we're already so high. I'm just talking about if it ticks down, if it just stays there, and if it goes up one more time, then it's like this train's leaving the train station, right? Like we gotta reel this thing back in. So my thought is, scary, but interest rates are going to continue going up. And the one thing you mentioned, you didn't really kind of summarize why the wars are important. When there's uncertainty in the market and even the broader geopolitics, people are a little bit more fearful, including banks. So they're more conservative.
Bingo.
So all roads right now are leading towards, hey, we have to be very careful and we're going to have to keep rates up. That's just from the banking side, right? The lending side. Jerome Powell also is like, dude, I wanted my legacy to be the guy that crushed inflation. Right now, this ain't looking good for that legacy. So all variables, all data points, not looking good for lower rates. It's looking like we're going up higher.
I think we're almost stuck in a weird version of the doom loop, and we've got the tiger by the tail. And the tiger by the tail is this idea that inflation is stickier, rates are going to have to be higher, but the economy is slowing down right in front of our eyes. Like if something is different is happening to you, tell us in the comments. But everyone I talk to is saying the economy is slowing down. And so they have to sit there and they have to be patient. But as the economy is slowing down, these other problems with GDP, with possible stagflation, is starting to now rear its ugly head and create additional problems. So Jerome Powell, the odds of the soft landing are today less. The odds of a recession, higher. The odds of higher rates for longer, a lot higher. So for our buyers and our investors and our people listening, I want you to take 90-day looks at the 10-year, 30-day looks at the 10-year, and know that's the direction that rates are trending. And then look at inflation and look at unemployment. That shows you which direction the whole economy is going and when the Fed can cut. And all of the data currently right now is saying the Fed cannot cut. And so we started with 7. The market said 1.5. I believe we're down to 1 cut, maybe in December, maybe 0 cuts this year, because inflation is too hot and too sticky. So as a buyer, as an investor, you must be prepared for this higher for longer and higher, more expensive rates while the economy is getting worse.
So what should buyers specifically be doing, and what specific type of buyers is there an opportunity for in this raising rates environment? And, like kind of talking about that pending sales opportunity,
Yep.
right? Because they might be not able to close. So there's an opportunity to pick up something at a discount because they need to sell. Are there any other things that you're seeing because of raising rates, and what buyers would be situated to be able to pounce on that opportunity?
It always depends on which buyer you are. So let's just start with a first-time home buyer. If you're a first-time home buyer and rates are rising, I think you need to push yourself all the way through the pre-qualification process and get fully underwritten approved so your offer is stronger. Then you need to go hunt for pending transactions that you think might die and off-market deals so you have less competition. Those are going to be your 2 best bets today, because those are the ones where you're going to possibly be able to get your closing costs, get rate buy downs, and have less competition. That first-time home buyer has to go to the less competition. Now let's go to the move-up buyer, so the buyer who has money. The move-up buyer needs to act more like the vulture in today's market and be looking for the deal and the opportunity from the motivated seller. They need to hunt until they find that motivated seller, because then they'll find the opportunity and whatever's creating that motivation. Let's flip it over to the investor. The investor is also looking for a forced seller, a forced motivation. So our investment group, we made an offer on a motel conversion. And this motel conversion, we ran the numbers, and we literally said to the seller, why are you not doing this? This is a good deal. Why would you give us a good deal? And the seller said, part of our group, one of our investors has ran into a financial situation with one of their other properties. So now they need to sell this property in order for that investor to deal with the other one. So that's what we're looking for as investors. We're looking for not I want to sell like a regular home buyer. We're looking for I have to sell. There's some external motivation, and this external motivation in this particular example was they need cash. So we're able to buy the asset at a discount and able to create that return. Because we know, being data dependent, following Papa Powell, rates are going to be higher for longer. So we've got to price in higher rates, which means we have to get more discounts on the deal for cash flow to work. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what I think buyers and investors are wondering about. Because I know as a buyer myself, or wanting to buy, I've been waiting for rates to go down. Now it's like, it doesn't look like it's going to go down. And even if it does, it's eventually going to go down very slowly.
Rates, and we've talked about this before, but and thank you to all of you that are regular listeners. The rates shoot up like a rocket and float down like a parachute. So as humans, because we're so addicted to our cell phones like this and the microwave and the internet, we're used to instant. That's not how rates work. Up like the SpaceX rocket, down slow over time like a parachute. So even once the Fed starts cutting, it's going to take a long time for rates to come back. So, we always like to kind of look into our crystal ball, right, Benji? The crystal ball today is don't expect rates in the sixes until early 2025 unless major economic changes happen. So just like Jerome, based on the totality of the data, we're going to be watching, right? But there's nothing to say that they should cut rates today. There's nothing standing in their way going, you know what, let's cut rates. So it is higher for longer. We must be more patient. You must increase your cash reserves today.
It's kind of scary.
This is one of those ones that worries me a little bit. And we'll get into that in the next part of this. Or I guess in part 3. But stagflation is that scary thing. But I want to talk about rates first.
Yeah.
And kind of what they're doing to the economy. Then we'll get into this idea of stagflation.
Yeah. So then the next question is, rates obviously matter for real estate, but how does that affect the economy? Maybe kind of break it down too, because most listeners are thinking about mortgage rates.
Yeah.
But then we often reference the Federal Reserve rate.
Yeah.
And then how does that affect the economy and in turn potentially affect real estate?
The thing to be thinking about the Federal Reserve is the Federal Reserve is setting the shortest interest rate on the curve. They're at the very beginning of the curve. They are the overnight rate. What happens is Bank of America or Chase come to them and say, I need to borrow $20 million today. That's the Fed fund rate. Here's $20 million. You get to have this at 5.5% interest for the next 24 hours. What that does is that's the catalyst, the precursor, the beginning. That then affects every other interest rate possible. Well, what do you mean, Anton? I mean all interest rates. So yes, we're real estate investors, so we care about mortgage rates, but it affects credit cards, lines of credit. It affects home equity lines of credit. It affects autos. It affects business investment. So all of a sudden, for the small business in your town, let's say they're an excavating business and they wanted to buy a new excavator. Well, now for them to borrow to get that machine is higher than it previously was. So all small businesses makes less investments because it requires more cash in order to be able to do it, because the payments are higher, because interest rates are higher. So as the Fed raises it, it slows down commerce and business behind it. That's why rates matter. So as the Fed changes, they affect all interest rates, which affects consumers, businesses, and real estate.
Couldn't you say we're feeling the effects of the interest rates that have been going up the last year? Finally, it's like coming out in the numbers.
Yes. Yeah. It's, I would say it's boiling to the surface. And all of this was sitting below the surface. And once again, as humans, we're used to this idea. The Fed did something today. I want the result tomorrow. That's not how an economy works. The Fed does something today. The result shows up 6 months, 12 months, 18 months later, usually in the 6 to 12 range. So the effects of higher for longer are showing up now, and that showed up in that low GDP number. So according to the Federal Reserve, we started out, and this is from Freddie Mac. You can find this right on the Fed website. We started out at about 6.5, and then today we are at just a little over 7. According to Mortgage News Daily, the 30-year fix started out at 6.67, and today it was 7.39. So you go, okay, what effect is that then having on housing specifically? You can find this in the Redfin Data Center. In the Redfin Data Center, you can see that nationally, when you put all metros on, pendings are down 3.8%. So in other words, the number of home sales getting ready to close is down slightly. And sold and closed homes are up slightly by 1%, because at the beginning of the year, interest rates were slightly lower, so we were picking up. The thing to understand as the buyer, as the investor, is if rates are higher and pendings are slow down, and they slow down nationally, that means deals are coming if there's less buyers looking because there's less buyers that qualify. However, this is not true for every metro. Let's go to our hood here in Seattle. Pendings are up in Seattle. Buyer demand is up in Seattle because our economy is stronger. And so one of the questions that kept popping up as I was looking for this is, why are pendings still about the same and not significantly down? Why have home sales not crashed here in the United States? Home sales have not crashed due to the massive lack of supply going back to the Great Recession. That time period when we built less homes, it's still showing up today. There's not enough homes, even for the demand, even for when it feels wildly unaffordable. And it is massively unaffordable for most buyers. However, there's still enough buyers that qualify that's keeping demand high enough, especially in the metros like the Seattle metro. Now, nationally, the numbers were showing down. Our metro, up. And your question was?
My question, so you said pendings are going down, right?
Yep.
So that means that there's less demand.
Correct.
Right? I guess at what point does supply actually start increasing and, like you said, actually pivot it the other way so that prices potentially go down because there's more competition?
Yep.
It's like I say, like, we've been waiting for rates to go down. You know what we've been waiting for longer than that? House prices to go down.
Everyone's waiting for house prices to go down and house prices to crash. What they showed us, though, during this housing recession, base level demand for transactions here in the U.S. is somewhere around 4 million transactions. There's enough have to buy and have to sell that keeps about 4 million transactions going. That's base level demand. The problem is with inventory being as low as it is, base level demand eats all the inventory. So how much would pendings have to go down? Pendings would probably have to drop 20%. What would cause pendings to drop 20%? Massive economic turmoil, massive layoffs, massive bankruptcies, stagflation for a long period of time, like we're going to talk about later in the episode. That could cause it. The problem is that's not going to cause it today, and you'd see it happen over a 2-year period. Humans, my humans, listen to me, my humans. We all have short minds. We think about things and we collapse time. And we forget how long things take. As the U.S. economy changed in 2006, it took from 2006 all the way to late 2008 to 2009 for the housing market to massively change. So if this was to happen, it would have to happen over a 24-month period. It's not going to happen instantly. But what is the Federal Reserve going to do the second everything breaks and the wheels fall off? Are they going to keep rates the same, or are they going to lower them?
Well, they'll lower them. The question is how fast they'll lower them.
The rates are, okay, so play this out with me, Benji. Would you agree rates are high right now?
Yes.
Would you agree rents are unaffordable and
Yes.
house prices are unaffordable?
Yes.
And yet prices are not going down?
No, they're not.
No, you have to say yes again.
Why?
Prices are not going down. Correct. What I'm trying to say here, I'm trying to illustrate for everyone, is we're already there where prices should be going down, and there's so little homes, this is not going to happen. No one's coming to save you on the price thing. I'm sorry. You have to make more money. You've got to get a side hustle. You've got to go find the better deal off the market because prices are not going down right now.
You know, it's a really good point you're trying to make right now, because I think this on a smaller scale with food.
Yeah.
Food prices, because I love food and I live for going to the grocery store. But I see the prices in the last 3 years just go up crazy. And I used to never have sticker shock. I'm just like, like anything I do well in life, I want it to go to my food and feeding my family and cooking because it's my passion. But I've seen it go to the point where like, I'm going to skip out the American Wagyu. I'll just get the USDA choice or whatever, right? And all the while, I've always thought, I wonder if prices are going to go down. And what I've noticed in the last 12 months, as inflation has gone down, nothing has been lowered in terms of food prices at all. At all. Like even when it's like this has to go down, it hasn't. So it's like people in a way are almost like, oh yeah, this is just what I have to pay now. I have to eat less of this, or I have to buy the cheaper version. And I even was going to make a video on my food channel about like, hey, this is how to save money at the grocery store. And I literally can't think of a lot of options because everybody wants to save money. Even they used to have a 50% off aisle or like section of the meat department. And guess what? It's not there anymore. It's like, everyone's just buying like the smallest little markdown. They're just buying, like they're literally eating the inflated prices. Yeah. And it's scary because that means that's forever. And so to your point, you have to make more money. You have to be smart about money. You have to be more discerning how you spend. And ultimately, if you're not doing well, it's going to get worse off you. If you're doing okay, your situation might get worse, right? And the only people that can really afford this lifestyle, but even like me, I'm like looking like, I used to buy American Wagyu at least like once every 2 weeks. Not anymore, right? Yeah. Nucci's even nodding his head. So my point is, it's scary to think we've accepted that with food, but to have to accept that with house prices, which is astronomically more expensive. That's why I say it's a scary time right now.
We have to accept that. So we love the data. Jerome loves the data. So if you look at price data over a long period of time, as prices go up, do they rarely revert to their previous low? So as they go up, they just stick there. They may come down a little bit, like 1%, a 2, 3, 4, but they never go back to where they were. You can see this in pricing data. Just go back and look over time. You can see this then in housing too. See, the Great Recession kind of screwed with our mind and made us think that every recession or economic downturn should lead to a price downturn. If you go look at every recession before that, and you go through the previous 10 recessions, only one of them had a price correction.
A major one? And that was a
No, it was recession. Like 3%.
Oh, okay, got it.
And so we go to the Great Recession, which was caused by real estate, and we go, that's normal. No, that's one piece of the data, not a longer chunk of the data. The longer chunk of the data says prices stay flat, go up slightly, or down slightly during a recession. And when I say slightly, I'm talking 1 to 3%. The great financial crisis, when housing prices dropped, depending on where you were in the country, 18 to 41%, that was abnormal, caused by mortgage-backed securities, caused by the Great Short. Go read the book, watch the movie. Phenomenal explanation of what we're talking about. The next thing this plays out into, though, is it plays into the stock market in relation to interest rates. So if you've been betting on the stock market lately and making money, let us know. I'm proud of you. I have a little bit going, and we've made good money. The S&P 500 up. Stock market's hitting an all-time high. Earnings season has just started. So as earnings season starts, there's pressure to hit your sales target and your revenue target. What's super interesting about this earnings season that doesn't happen in your regular earnings seasons is if you hit expectations on your sales and revenue, your stock price drops. If you miss on both sales and revenue, you have a 5.2% drop in your stock price versus a regular 3.1%. So the stock market itself is showing you, we know we're currently overvalued. We're hitting the top of the value. And if you don't just dazzle us and massively beat expectation, we're going to take away from your stock price today. So the stock market is also feeling these higher interest rates. It's getting frothy at the top. And as the stock market gets frothy, it's another boat in the harbor. It's another domino. The stock market says, oh, there's a problem. Great. That also pushes up bond yields, which makes interest rates higher.
So then the question is this: what should the average buyer or investor be doing right now in a environment where things look like they're getting worse?
Yep.
We've got bad conditions in the economy, and interest rates are going up at the same time. Home prices are they at an all-time high right now?
Oh yeah, by a long shot, and appreciating nationally and a lot locally here in Seattle. So I think the average buyer, the first-time home buyer, they should be cautiously optimistic and try to purchase today. And that sounds counterintuitive. You go, wait a second, Anton. You just said rates are up. You said the economy's kind of doesn't work as well, and I should purchase today? WTF, Batman. Here's why. In 2022 and in 2023, we had a slowdown in permits and development applications. Yes, here in Seattle, but totally actually throughout most of the United States. What that means, because hey, I'm a developer, that means in 2025 and in 2026, you will have less supply hitting the market in a market that's already supply constrained. And by 2025 and 2026, interest rates should be lower than they are today, which will increase demand, which will cause more rapid appreciation in 25 and 26 than you're seeing today. And so my fear and concern is this is really going to hurt the renter and the low-income individuals. This really hurts the middle class who's being pinched right now at every angle. This problem we're experiencing today with inflation and high prices, even when they get inflation under control, because that shelter component is going to rear its ugly head in 25 and 26, is going to pinch everyone again. It's going to be like that bullwhip where they just whipped it and it comes back and gets you and you thought it was done. That's my actual greatest fear here, is that it's going to come back and get us again. Second, you need to have more reserves than you think. You should have more cash reserves, whether you're the investor or the home buyer in today's environment. Because as the economy gets worse, you don't know what you're going to need the cash for. You need to cut some of those stupid expenses, the Hulus, the Netflixes, things like that. And you need to save a little extra money, and you need to be just a little more prepared. Because with what we're going to talk about next, GDP missing, the economy is showing itself getting worse in front of our eyes, but the Fed is also saying, I'm not ready to cut rates. That means more pain ahead. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom. I'm an eternal optimist, but there is more pain coming, and the odds of the recession went up. So we have to start preparing for that.
All right. Is there a bright side to this
there's
podcast?
There's something bright in here somewhere. We're going to find it.
Well, I mean, the other thing, and this gets pretty nerdy with economics, but is this a number that came out today?
Yeah, this morning.
So GDP had a massive miss to the downside. What does this mean for real estate? Can you define what GDP is, why it's important, and of course, what it means for real estate?
GDP is a gross domestic product. It's like measuring the productivity of the United States. And so the Bureau of Economic Analysis advanced estimate for first quarter U.S. GDP showed the economy growing at 1.6 when the prediction was 2.5. GDP missed by almost 1%. That's a massive miss. That's a massive miss to the downside. This is you're sitting there and you go, oh crap. And then you go, why is everything so quiet? And someone on the front of the boat yells, iceberg, dead ahead. And I'm not trying to be over dramatic with this. A 1% miss in GDP is a massive sign that the economy is slowing. But the problem, and this is the iceberg, inflation is burning hot. Unemployment is still low, which means the Fed cannot lower rates. So we have to experience the pain. You had some of these economists come on and say, you know what, this headline number, it's not as bad as it is, because it's some trade stuff, it's some internal data. I don't care. Something missing by 1% when the average American is struggling. When the average person says rent's too expensive, house prices are too expensive, like you said, my man, groceries are too expensive, and the economy misses prediction by 0.9, aka almost 1%, that's an iceberg. That's a problem. Once again, I'm trying not to be alarmist here, but my brain immediately goes, this is an early indicator of the potential for stagflation. So let's go to the definition of stagflation so we're on the same page. Stagnant, slow economic growth. Inflation and rising unemployment all at the same time. So inflation for the last 3 months has been trending up. Okay, slightly up, but up is up. It's not flat, it's not down, it's up. Unemployment has not started rising, but economic growth is slowing. So if unemployment starts rising, but inflation is still high, the Fed can't cut, because what they will do is they will fuel the inflation fire, which puts us into stagflation. And that's like the worst of the worst. So like if I'm sitting there and I want to pick my poison, okay, and I want to pick recession versus stagflation, I'm choosing recession because it's easier to deal with. Stagflation can get you stuck in the doom loop, and then you end up like Japan. Japan went through this thing that was called the lost decade, where they were stuck in stagflation. I want to make sure I get the years right. They were stuck in stagflation from 1991 to 2001, where basically their whole economy underperformed other developed economies because they couldn't dramatically change rates. They couldn't dramatically affect employment, so their economy was just stagnant. Our economy is so debt-riddled with 34 trillion in debt and the consumer being in high debt. We have to keep the money moving. The U.S. consumer and the U.S. economy can't go through stagflation like Japan did. See, when Japan went through stagflation in the 90s and into the early 2000s, they didn't have the level of debt we had. The consumer didn't have the level of debt. This is a major economic problem. Also, what this does is this backs Jerome Powell, Papa Powell, based on the totality of the data, into the corner. It prevents Papa Powell from making that rate cut until this inflation cools more. So he needs unemployment to go up, inflation to cool more, and then he can cut. But at this rate, I do not believe we're going to get a cut this year. Okay? Or we get maybe one in December. Or the Fed has to then wear that political thing and make one somewhere near the election, which, that'll cause all kinds of problems. And like we've talked about before, I think Jerome's playing for legacy. He knows the current president and the incumbent don't want him in office. He's already made a bunch of money. So, boom, he wants to go down in the history books. Okay? So, how does he go down in the history books? Become the man to stick a soft landing or to beat stagflation or to have the American economy survive one or both of those. So the odds of the recession just went up, and it means rates are higher for longer. That's the problem with this GDP number coming in so low.
How does this affect real estate?
How it affects real estate is this guarantees higher for longer. This guarantees this base level of transactions and demand exists. This also then, though, causes banks to go, wait a second. Let's press the pause button a little bit more. Let's make them wait a little bit longer. You know what, Benji, he's one of our preferred customers. We'll just keep him in underwriting a little longer. I'm joking when I said that. That happened to me as a preferred customer with a bank I do a ton of business with. Deal normally takes 2 months. I just came out at a little over 4 months. And I go, oh my goodness, if this is happening to me, it's happening to everyone. It means it's harder to borrow. Okay. It means get a better deal, ask better questions, negotiate stronger. It means there's the potential for real estate to falter. But the problem is when I say falter, everyone thinks prices. Prices are not, there's no indication on the residential side prices are faltering. There is a lot of indication on the commercial side that prices are faltering. But this is not going to be your residential recession.
Well, one of the reasons why prices aren't falling in real estate is because inventory is low. But if the GDP is showing we're not very productive, and it could slow down the economy and make banking and lending more hesitant, that means there's not money for developers to do
Bingo.
construction of homes, which would make the situation even worse on the inventory side.
Yes.
So it's almost like it just squeezes that industry and buying opportunities down. It's going to lead. This is what there's going to be two worlds here. There's going to be the majority of the world who just stay in whatever situation they're in, renting,
Yes.
stay in their same home, right? They were going to maybe upgrade. They're not going to upgrade. And then everyone else kind of loses hope. Then this small group of people who have the money or have the savvy or like real estate agents like you that stay in the game and make things work. But even then, maybe it's never going to get back to the heyday of like the 2010s, right?
Yes.
Because we're in stagflation. That's what's so crazy. I've heard about stagflation and what Japan went through. I've never kind of actually seen the beginning of it in my own life. I feel like we're seeing it.
Everything could change in 30, 60, 90 days. But what this is you and I are sitting on the Titanic. Someone just yelled iceberg dead ahead. Now, hopefully, the captain of the boat, Jerome, Mr. Powell, Papa Powell, and the U.S. government gets their act in order, and we avoid it. This is avoidable. But the problem is any way you look at it, we have to experience pain. And Congress has shown they don't want to experience pain, and the U.S. consumer has shown they don't experience pain. I don't know how we don't experience pain here. We have to go through some bankruptcies. We have to go through some debt cycle. We have to go through the pinching of the prices in order to go into a healthy economy on the other side. Recessions are natural. They're good. Okay? They're just painful when you go through them. But in a recession is where wealth is made. That's what I want people to hear and understand, that this problem, so let's just say we do start to go into stagflation or we do start to go into a recession. This is where the wealth will be created over the next 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. So you make money in a good economy, you make wealth in a recession or during massive economic transition, and we're in the transition right now.
What's one or two like quick opportunities that happens in this environment, and who are those people that can take advantage of it?
The people who can take advantage of the best opportunities in this environment are, generally speaking, investors. The investor who has cash or has Arent Tilly on their side can go find another investor where their cash flow has all of a sudden been pinched, or their note is being called due, or the bank won't refinance them, or they can't finish the construction project. Those are your opportunities today. Your second opportunities, now this may be for the home buyer and it may be for the investor, is anything that creates units. That creating of the units is because we just talked about how low inventory is. So anywhere that you can build a duplex, create a mother-in-law apartment, add an extra bedroom, flip something, install a manufactured home, build some townhomes, that's where you're going to create massive opportunity, because we just told you this inventory problem is going to continue for the next 2 to 3 years at a minimum. If you'd like to know more about this or how we can do this together, just give us a call. You can catch us on resg.com. We're available to help you with these things, but that's your massive opportunity. It's in creating inventory or finding the have-to seller. Now, I want to flip it over to the regular buyer. The regular buyer is in the off-market deal or following up on the deal that just died. If you're on market, in most of these metros, it's so tight, you're going to have to pay top dollar or more. Now, if it's the perfect house, just go pay for it. People, we discount emotion, when we're thinking about purchasing. If you buy the right house for your family and it puts your kids in the right school district and it's the right neighborhood and you love the kitchen and it's got the right backyard and your wife loves, the kitchen and the master bedroom, Even if you had to overpay for it a little bit, who cares? Think about the emotional long-term enjoyment and benefit you're creating for your family. And because we don't believe prices are going down and they're only going to go up and that appreciation is going to get worse in 25 and 26, I still believe 24 is the right time to buy.
All right, you guys, you know where to get a hold of Anton, resg.com. We'll put all the information down below. Subscribe for more real estate podcast information about the Seattle metro area right here.